I am Jessie Owen, and I will introduce myself a little bit more in a second. When you live with a visible disability, there's a moment that happens almost every single time you walk into a new room. You can feel people trying to figure out your story. Because a stranger in a wheelchair or a stranger that looks different gets narrated by whoever's looking at her. And usually that story goes like loss, limitation, tragedy, somebody to feel sorry for, somebody who is so brave. You're so brave. And it's not malicious when people do this, but it's annoying. And it really has a way of sucking the air right out of the room. But when you know how the story goes, you know how it ends, and you can get there first. And I think people have different ways of coping with that moment. Some people, total quiet, ice them out, ignore. Some people maybe stop doing new things and going to those experiences all the time. They just don't do that. For me, I tended, and still do, tend to talk fast and share it all and get there first and narrate the story to them before they can shower me with their pity. And so somewhere along the line, I think some of us, including myself, started to believe that that's what disabled people are supposed to do. We're supposed to justify our place in the room. We're supposed to apologize for taking up so much space. We're not supposed to let people feel uncomfortable looking at us. And for a long time, that's exactly what I did. My name is Jessie Owen, and I'm always a little baffled about how to introduce myself because I have my bear paws in a lot of different honey pots all the time. I am a disability and accessibility consultant, and I am a social media content creator who now has over 500,000 followers across our platforms, which is still the most surprising thing to me that's ever happened to me, including this wheelchair. I am a clinical trial participant. I'm an independent contractor and a former 6th grade teacher, which really explains my tolerance for chaos. And like many people in this room, I think you'll find my story very familiar. I was living one life, and then there was the accident, and the hospital, and the recovery, and the rehab, and then the long process of trying to figure out how to live a life that was completely different than the life that I was living before. And that's usually where people think the story ends. Oh, you figured it out. But it turns out that that's actually where the story begins. Oh, cute. In my mid-20s, I was living in Seattle. I was a 6th grade teacher, that's 11 and 12-year-olds. I ran half marathons and triathlons, and I went to the bars on Saturdays, and I went to my parents' house on Sundays for dinner. And that wasn't just what I did. That was the answer to the question of who I was. I'm a teacher. And then in 2012, my family was driving over a snowy highway pass in the mountains, and a tree fell on our car. And my parents died. And my siblings were severely injured. And I was airlifted off that mountain, not yet knowing what my body had lost. And the answer to the question of who I was, poof, gone. I couldn't do any of those things anymore. And along with a lot of broken bones, stitches, internal injuries, somebody, probably a doctor, told me that I was paralyzed, a quadriplegic. And I think I understood in that moment that the only thing I needed to do right now was just survive. That's all I needed to do, is stay alive. And so that's what I did. There were so many flowers, so many people checking in, trays of food that kept coming. People were so tuned in, and they were so alert on the group chat. I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. They already had the context for what's going on. My whole world shrunk down to doctors, family, close friends. Anybody that had the context, I did not have to explain myself or anything about me because the crisis explained me. The structure that you build around patients in those early days, the appointments, the care team, the entire reorganization of a life around a medical event is necessary and super important. And without anyone trying for it to be, it is now the beginning of a new identity. And the patient doesn't know that yet. And then I want to tell you how I found this out because it's important and it's also the funniest way that medicine has ever delivered good news to me. A doctor performed a test. The doctor needed to check for sensation in a very specific location with a glove. And what that test confirmed was that I was an incomplete quadriplegic. I had maybe 12, 18 months of potential recovery, maybe some, we don't know, but there's something. And I thought, oh, thank God, a project. Because a project meant that maybe I wasn't stuck. And if I wasn't stuck, then maybe I didn't have to look at everything that I just lost, my parents, my autonomy, an entire stew of decisions that were being made without me. They found that out by sticking a finger in my butt, just so we're clear on how the science works. And then, after about 3 weeks in the ICU, I was rolled into the rehab unit where I spent 3 months inpatient, about 5 days a week. And then for the next 3 years, 5 days a week, I did outpatient rehab. It gave me something to be. I sucked at everything. I couldn't do anything that I liked anymore. I couldn't write, I couldn't walk, I couldn't do my hair and makeup. I couldn't do the things that used to answer the question of who I was. But I could show up to rehab. I could fill my days with that. And that was going to have to be good enough. It wasn't exactly about getting better because spinal cord injuries don't totally work like that, but it was about pointing my mental compass at something and having something to do, having a tiny bit of control. So 5 days a week for a long time, I dumped everything I had into that room, grief, loss, happiness, not that much, into that room. And I didn't look up for a very long time because I was not ready to see everything else. But rehab did create a softer mental landing for me from before life to now life. But here's the question I didn't have the language for yet. When does the thing that really holds you together, and it did, start to become the thing that limits you? My appointments slowed. My world was getting bigger. Groceries, taxes. Okay, not mine. Just I also do that. Things I hadn't caught up to yet. Without the structure of the appointments, I didn't have an identity waiting for me on the other side of that. So I picked up the one that was right in front of me. When you go out into the world, when I was going out in the world, everyone could see you. And I could see everyone seeing me. And the attention was not the problem. I love attention. It was sad attention, and I didn't much care for that. It's strangers stopping me in the yogurt aisle to tell me that I am an inspiration. I am not trying to be an inspiration right now. I am trying to get yogurt. If you need inspiration, get a cat calendar. Disabled people don't exist to help the rest of the population feel brave about going to spin class. And it was hard. And so I got a little white ratty dog about this time. His name was Gambit. And Gambit came with me a lot of places. And I realized that when I had Gambit on my lap, people didn't say, oh, wow, look at your wheelchair. Oh, okay, Hot Wheels, I'm gonna give you a speeding ticket. They would say, oh, cute dog. Oh, what a cute dog you have. Oh, so well behaved. And I liked that. I liked that. Not everyone was just seeing my wheelchair. But Gambit couldn't go everywhere. And out here, the only tool I had was the wheelchair in my tragedy. So I got really good at this party trick where I could look in the room and I could tell who was going to come up to me and say something, and I would get there first. And I would tell them everything, and I would wrap it up with a nice little bow and tell them everything was fine before they could get to me, and also shower me with their pity. But I did it a lot. And the tragedy and the wheelchair were not just a chapter of my life anymore. They became the way that I connected with people, the way that I felt seen in the room. And when something becomes the way that you connect with other people, that becomes not just your coping mechanism, that becomes your personality. That becomes part of your personality. And I don't think that feedback loop is entirely unique to me. When someone or everyone starts telling you the same thing over and over again, you start to believe it and you start to narrate your own life with it. Like, oh, that's the girl in the wheelchair, or, ooh, that guy failed math, he's not very good, or, ooh, she's divorced, or, oh, that's the immigrant who made it. He's so successful. It doesn't really matter if it's a compliment or devastating. The mechanism is the same. The world tells you who you are, and you start to believe it. And I think everyone has probably lived a version of this in their life, or at least seen someone they love slip into it. But I was about to get some very unexpected clarity. So here I am. My rehab compass is done. The appointments have slowed a ton. I'm not back to work. I need to fill my days, and I am ready to try being a human again. And I decide the best way to do that is to schedule an appointment with some hot wax and a stranger. Now, in my defense, 50 Shades of Grey, I had been watching a lot of that. And Jamie Dornan was really doing it for me. And nothing says I'm rebuilding my identity like voluntarily inviting someone to do some professional hedge trimming. Yes, I scheduled an appointment for some emergency landscaping in the lower rainforest. Now, I found myself in this quiet little room, not built for wheelchairs, so small, trying to 3-point turn, and I transfer myself onto the table, and I ask this complete stranger to help me with my jacket, and I felt proud about asking for help. And then this complete stranger helps me pretzel to get into the best position. And I am now horizontal, looking like Winnie the Pooh. And this complete stranger has put on reading glasses to better examine my lady garden. And I cannot stop talking. This woman did not ask me a single question other than, are you comfortable and how can I help you? And I tell her everything. I tell her about the accident. I tell her about what I specifically remember from the accident. I tell her my parents died. I tell her about the hot doctor. I tell her about catheters. I tell her about rectal stimulation. And I tell her I'm fine. I'm so fine. I gave this woman my entire autobiography while she was staring directly at my muffin factory. And here's the thing. Normal people go into these appointments with some hot gossip, some work drama, some situationships update, the normal currency of a situation like this where someone has been granted an audience with the queen. And I had nothing. My whole life, the only thing I did or thought about was my tragedy in the wheelchair. And so that is what came out. And somewhere in the middle of that, legs open, dignity, unaccounted for, I had a realization. I had clearly become the wheelchair and the tragedy. That's the whole person. And lying there, I decided that was not enough. That was not going to cut it. And I wanted my life to have more in it than my worst chapter. And this is where we welcome the long middle. Life has those sharp moments, the diagnosis, a phone call at 2 a.m., a funeral, a wedding, the day you sign the papers, all of the days that you remember and make the highlight reel, that make your highlight reel. Everything else, all of the ordinary moments stacked up next to those sharp moments, that's where we do all the living. That's the long middle. And I was already in it. I just didn't recognize it yet because it didn't look like the life that I had had before. And so I kept treating it as temporary. And I was already trying. I just wasn't counting it. Hang on, I'm losing my mic here a little. Let's see if I can scoot it up. I got it. I think I got it. Good? Yeah. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. You guys want to see my ears? Oh, does that one slip in too? Okay. So I wasn't counting it. And where I think I was going with that is I think a lot of people are doing the same thing, living a lot more than we're actually giving ourselves credit for. So the version of you that showed up today, maybe it's the version that's just killing it in life right now, but also maybe the version of you that just going to the shop and back is a lot. And that's okay. It still counts. We are still living in the long middle. And you're already building those small accumulations that make a life. For a long time after my injury, I didn't engage with the spinal cord injury community. My wheelchair was temporary. And my real life was over there, and I was over there waiting for it, waiting over there with it, because the alternative was permanent, and I didn't like that. The world is hard on disabled people and disabled bodies, and I didn't think we were the cool kids. I didn't, and I wanted to be exempt from what I had already decided that we were. And I couldn't tell you what shifted. I don't know. Time, probably time. But at some point I looked up and I realized that the life that I'd been quietly building for myself started to look more like my life than the one that I was waiting for. I grew into my power as a wheelchair user, and that version of me stopped waiting for another version of me to show up, and I started showing up for myself. And part of that looks like going to events and conferences like this one, where we get to meet other people. And at one of those events, I learned about a clinical trial back in the United States designed to help people with their upper limb mobility, their upper extremities. And I asked if I might be a good candidate, and I said yes. My hands were, and still are, the most frustrating part of my injury. So yes, I said yes. But I went into it without a lot of expectations. In fact, I would say I went into this clinical trial feeling like I was ready to do science a favor, because if you know anything about spinal cord injuries, and I think you do, you know, it has A long history of freaking nothing. There's not a lot of reliable treatments out there. So I said yes, thinking that I was going to be a humanitarian. And I still think that. And this was in 2018. So in 2018, I enrolled in the clinical trial at the University of Washington. And it's with this device called the ARC-EX by ONWARD Medical. And what it is it's transcutaneous or external stimulation of the spinal cord. It uses non-invasive electrical stimulation placed on the skin to deliver a very specific frequency of stimulation to your spinal cord to help wake up dormant neural pathways that are having trouble communicating. And when you pair that with intentional movement and occupational therapy, that stimulation helps the signal grow and connect and get stronger to make more movement, to make more sensation. That study started with 2 months of just occupational therapy. So it was a clinical trial parameters, right? Science, you have to get a baseline. So I spent 2 months in this lab doing really frustrating small tasks, stacking blocks, squeezing putty, trying to put beads on a necklace, tie a shoelace, and I just was not getting any better at it. I was not getting any better at it. And it was really frustrating, and the only way I know how to describe that to the people in this room is to ask you to try to wiggle your ears. And if you can do it, great. But if you can't, you know that your brain is sending the signal to wiggle your ears, but nothing's happening. Like you think it's there and nothing's happening. And that's exactly what was happening for 2 months of my life. Well, I mean, all the time, but definitely, specifically, 2 months trying to stack those blocks. And then the stimulation came. And for me, it wasn't a light bulb moment. I had that first session, it was fine, and the second, and then my mood started getting better, and I thought that was interesting, I was less frustrated, and then the blocks started getting higher, and then I freaking tied a double knot. I had been working on that for 2 months, and I thought, my, what do we have here? The gains held. 7 years later, I have kept the function anywhere between 50 and maybe 80% of what I did during that trial. And I know that's anecdotal. I'm so sorry. I am going to lose my mic again. Can one of you guys come help me a little bit? It's a little bit slippery. And this is the exciting part. But I think I can keep talking. I think I can. So I know that's anecdotal, somewhere between 50 and 80%. But I would also say that the Uplift pivotal trial, research that came out would show that other clinical participants are also exhibiting very similar, thank you so much, very similar experiences as me. So, you want to go one more, Alan? So what we found is that 87% of participants improved their quality of life. I don't know if it was on the slide before this, but 90% of participants experienced either increased function or strength. 90%. The ARC-EX was named Time Magazine Best Invention of the Year in 2024. In late 2024, it received FDA clearance in the US, and about 6 months ago, it received the CE mark of approval here in Ireland. And I've been working with ONWARD Medical since this trial, and we have been working hard to get this here in Ireland, and it looks like we are expecting the first device here in April. Weeks away. We are so close. I'm still a quadriplegic. You could see that. But there is a vast difference between not being able to do something at all and being able to do something with a little time and patience. A pickle jar hates to see me coming now. It knows I am getting in. And this is a really exciting time in our community. The mustache. I got more than I expected from that clinical trial. And when that happens, you kind of take a look around your life and you think, what else might have I given up on a little bit too early? Because at the end of the day, I am just a person trying to squeeze the most out of life. The long middle is long for a reason. We're still living it. So I started taking these small bites of life, and I decided to download Bumble, which is online dating. And I think we can all appreciate the courage it takes to do any type of dating, specifically online dating, as a person with a visible disability. Because what if nobody says yes? What if people make fun of you? What if you're unlovable? I don't know. It's a hard pill to swallow. And I swallowed it anyway, and I made a profile. And I went on some really freaking weird dates. But eventually I did meet a man with a phenomenal mustache. And I made him fall so hard, he put a ring on it just to lock it down before I changed my mind. And then took another little small bite of life. We talked about kids. I'd kind of written off that part of my life. I didn't think that was possible. I didn't know anyone that had kids after a spinal cord injury, let alone a woman that got pregnant with a spinal cord injury. I didn't see a version of that future out there for me. So I kind of tucked that part of me away. And then this man with the mustache started asking me what I really wanted and not just what I'd already decided I couldn't have for myself. And so after, a long conversation and 3 bottles of wine, we settled on yes. And that yes turned into a positive pregnancy test. The old-fashioned way, and I always say this because you are my people, and I know you know, and so many people are nosy, but yes. And then I learned that I had a geriatric pregnancy because I was an older mom, which I would love to have a word with a medical professional about. That is offensive. And at that very first ultrasound appointment, this is something I didn't think was ever in the cards for me. So that first ultrasound appointment, the technician had me lay back. She gelled me up and she, turned the screen so I could see. And she said, "Here's your baby." And then she said, "Here's the other baby." And I swear I could hear my parents cackling from the afterlife. That was absolute payback for the menace I was as a child. My pregnancy was uncomfortable, and I am truly convinced that any woman that says that they love being pregnant is lying straight to our faces. I simultaneously wanted to be bigger and more adorably pregnant and visibly pregnant so people didn't think I was so awkward, and also way less pregnant and way more balanced. I was also very aware that there were a lot of people that did not think I should be pregnant, a lot of people that didn't think I should be a mother, a lot of people thought I was cruel for bringing a child into this world when I couldn't do a lot of the things that other moms can, that I was a disabled mom. And some of those people said those things to my face. My OB was not one of them. And there is a certain kind of power in being received exactly as you are, even when that other person has every reason to hesitate. And she didn't. She received me with joy and enthusiasm and made me feel so normal. Just another pregnancy. And I will always, I will always remember that. And this part, really, this has nothing to do with the long middle or anything. I just think it's interesting, especially in a room like this. And that is my OB said that I could try delivering vaginally, even as a quadriplegic. If baby A was head down, I could go for it. And that's because uterine contractions are largely controlled by the autonomic nervous system, and my body could drive that. And I would have loved to report back to this room that a paralyzed person delivered a baby through the old birth cannon, through the factory floor, just to say that I did it. Baby A was not head down. C-section. That's okay. That's okay. Someone out here will do it for us. And at 10:41 and 10:42 in the morning, I had 2 healthy baby boys. And I know, isn't that so sweet? And when the nurse brought that baby over to me, my son over to me, and I looked at his face, I threw up. I was not feeling that great. Blood pressure's a little low, a lot of medicine, but covered in the chaos of a C-section and crying babies and throw up, I had never been so overstimulated and so completely fulfilled at the exact same time. And right then, my life changed forever again. And that's the thing about the long middle. You think you know the shape of it, and then you crack the door a little bit, and life kicks it right in and doubles your order. I was holding 2 babies, and I was the happiest that I had ever been. And yet I felt a huge wave of grief and sadness. I missed my own mama so much in those moments. They both would have been phenomenal grandparents, and they deserved to be grandparents. And they're never gonna meet their baby, their grandkids, and that made me so sad. And I still miss them so deeply. And I think I realized that, taking these small bites of life forward doesn't mean that you stop looking back. You can be building your life and grieving at the same time, because I do it all the time. I still play that what if game. What if that tree didn't fall? What if I left? What are the odds that a tree falls on your car? What if we got stopped at a stoplight? What if I went to the bathroom before we had left that day? I don't know. Your version might not be a tree. Your version might be a pool, a diagnosis. It might be the lover who got away, that what if game. But I bet you all play it. And here's what I know about the what if game. It doesn't lead anywhere. I've played it 1,000 times, and there is no prize at all. We have one body. We have one giant meat sack. And I didn't get to pick mine, and I don't think you got to pick yours either. But it's the only one we got. This is all we got. And our only job here on earth is just to live in it, to just live. The long middle is not a consolation prize. It's not what you get when you couldn't have the life that you wanted. When you couldn't have your real life. It's where all of us are negotiating and making peace and fighting for access and falling in love and throwing up after C-sections and really dreading getting dressed in the morning because it's so hard. I'm not living an able-bodied life. I'm not. Getting in the car is a whole production. And some days, the things that I can do are only very small. That's all that my body can allow for that day. But we stop measuring our days against the standards that are not built for our body. The morning routine that takes twice as long, that is still our morning routine. That is our life. The life that we live now versus the life that we had before, the life we have now, that is ours. It is ours, and we get to claim that. We have already survived the thing that most people are the most afraid of. And most people will never know what they are fully capable of. We know. We know. We make playlists, we make friends, we let life be life. It's hard, and we do it anyway. Travel is hard. Sometimes going to the shop is hard. Pushing a shopping cart is hard. It's hard, and we do it anyway. Because living a small life was never going to be enough for me, and I don't think it's going to be enough for anyone in this room either. The minute the world can see that you are different, it starts writing your story for you. Tragedy, loss, limitation, somehow that you are less than. An assumption that you're less than. And without even realizing it, some of us can start letting that narration get into our own lives and have the hardest thing that's ever happened to us become the most important. But we're the ones that get to decide if that's the version of life that we want to live. We have the pen. The long middle is where we figure that out in the accumulation of small things. A yogurt, a Bumble profile, rolling into a room full of people who you were once afraid to see yourself in. Every small bite of life is a sentence that we wrote ourselves. And eventually we look up and we realize that the story sounds like us again. We are the cool kids. We always were. I just had to get naked in front of a stranger to figure that out. Cheers, guys. Lunch.